A raging storm wreaked havoc on a coastal village, leaving its inhabitants in misery. But after the storm cleared, the sun broke through the clouds, and people began cleaning up and collecting their spoils. It was then they stumbled upon a mermaid stranded on the shore and immediately reported it to the local official for a reward. Her ethereal beauty captivated everyone, especially the official who was smitten with her. That night, he held a feast to welcome the new district magistrate and boasted about the mermaid, leading everyone to enjoy her spectacle. The new magistrate, upon catching sight of the mermaid, was immediately smitten and fell head over heels for her. Knowing the official's intentions of using her to make a magic oil for eternal flame, he bravely exposed his evil scheme, forcing him to release her back to the sea. Ignoring the terrifying rumors surrounding mermaids, he took her hand, starting their fated love story. Fast forward to the present, Jun-yi, a notorious thief in Korea, spends his days conning people and his nights wooing women. Accompanied by his assistant and a skilled hacker, he embarks on a new grand heist. Disguising themselves as elevator repairmen, they infiltrate a building. They easily subdue the security guard with a simple hypnotizing trick using a lighter. They split into two teams. Jun-yi and his assistant disguise themselves as prosecutors, approaching their target. Meanwhile, the hacker hacks the traffic light system, causing chaos for the real prosecutors. The assistant cleverly invites their target for a meal, giving them a chance to discuss their plan. Jun-yi proposes a trip to a beautiful archipelago in the Mediterranean Sea, successfully trapping their target. With money in hand, they split up and head for their respective vacations. As soon as the plane takes off, Jun-yi charms the flight attendant, pretending to be a charming doctor. The attendant tells him that mermaids are said to still exist in this area, though they are nearly extinct, and only a few remain in this region. Meanwhile, Sim-chung dives deep into the ocean, following a glowing object, a jade bracelet. She emerges, holding the bracelet and admiring it in the sunlight. Meanwhile, Jun-yi arrives at the destination and contemplates by the sea. The ocean starts shaking violently, a volcanic eruption causing tremors across the sea, accidentally pulling Sim-chung into the swirling water. She miraculously survives and gets washed ashore. For the first time, Sim-chung is mesmerized by the human world. She looks down, surprised to find her tail missing, replaced by smooth legs. She tries to dive back into the ocean, but her fish tail reappears. Jun-yi, waking up and heading outside for some air, returns to his room and finds his clothes in disarray. He gets up to investigate, but finds only a pair of legs inside his closet. Overcoming his fear, he pulls open the door and finds a girl. Seeing her wearing his favorite shirt, he gets angry, putting Sim-chung on the defensive. Enraged, Jun-yi loses his temper and gets physical with her. Sim-chung, seeing her home outside, impulsively rushes towards it, but crashes into the window and faints. Jun-yi calls the police and ties her up. Seeing her holding something in her hand, he assumes it's stolen goods and tries to pry it open, only to find a cherry, causing him to collapse. The police arrive and take her away, leaving Jun-yi to relax on the sofa. He scrolls through his phone and stops at a picture of her wearing the jade bracelet. On the way to the police station, Sim-chung experiences a whole new world. Jun-yi quickly contacts his assistant to get the bracelet appraised. Meanwhile, Jun-yi goes on a date with the flight attendant. As they're enjoying each other's company, his assistant sends him the appraisal results. The simple-looking bracelet is worth over 6 billion won. He rushes to the police station and bails Sim-chung out. His attitude is now completely different from earlier. He sincerely apologizes, but Sim-chung doesn't understand. He tries to take the bracelet back, but she stops him with a fist. Realizing she's not easy to manipulate, he changes his plan and takes her shopping. When he tells her to put on the shoes, she tries to put them on her hands and dances, making him cringe. He helps her put them on her feet. Later, when trying on dresses, she puts it on her head and walks out, forcing him to pull her back in. After helping her get dressed, Sim-chung feels radiant and playfully jokes around. When she goes out to explore, she can't find him. She sets off to explore the world on her own. Jun-yi returned to find Sim-chung missing. He frantically searched everywhere until he spotted her sitting in a corner, sucking on a candy. He couldn't help but scold her. He then invited her to eat. Sim-chung preferred to eat with her hands, directly bringing food to her mouth instead of using chopsticks. All his pride was tossed aside because of the 6 billion won bracelet. To make matters worse, she devoured a dozen plates of food stacked on top of each other, even using both hands to hold 2 pastries at once. Seeing his opportunity, he transformed the 6 billion won bracelet into a dazzling necklace. Achieving his goal, Junyi tricked her into a crowded area, telling her to wait for him, knowing he wouldn't return. Naive as she was, she patiently awaited his return. Meanwhile, Junyi leisurely packed his belongings, preparing for a quick getaway. Sim Chung waited until the center closed. As Junyi was driving, stopped at a red light, he remembered Sim Chung's cow trick. Despite being kicked out and insulted, she persevered and waited for him. Finally, Junyi returned and took her hand. Though he said goodbye, he ultimately took her to his car. When he asked her if she wanted to go home or to a hotel, he was completely stumped by her answer and brought her back to his apartment. When the lights turned on, the extravagant interior overwhelmed Sim Chung. He was comfortably cuddling with his laptop when Sim Chung suddenly jumped at him from behind. It was the first time she had seen such a curious thing, and she grabbed it, shaking it vigorously, trying to see if someone would fall out. Sim Chung was captivated by the computer, watching every movie on it. The next morning, Junyi was surprised to discover she was a night owl. When he tried to retrieve his laptop, she refused to give it back. Just then, his assistant called to inform him that the Moonzon Corporation was furious and had begun to take action, targeting Junyi. Without hesitation, he hung up and began packing his bags. Less than a minute later, Junyi turned around to find gangsters searching for him. They reached his room, only to find a time bomb. Terrified, they all hit the ground, but realized it was a fake. Junyi and Sim Chung had escaped, but the gangsters were still in pursuit. They ran up to the top of the building, enjoying the chase as if they were a romantic couple on a beautiful day. After shaking off most of their pursuers, they descended the stairs, only to be met by reinforcements. Junyi told her to hide in a corner while he took down 3 burly men. Meanwhile, Sim Chung tackled the whole gang from behind, using her computer skills to easily take them down. Unfortunately, the gang had a gun. Junyi pulled out his lighter to hypnotize them, but the leader had a mind of steel. In the end, Junyi was captured. Unexpectedly, Sim Chung jumped on her bicycle and chased after them, riding faster than a car at 80 km/h. Seeing Sim Chung blocking the road, the gangsters charged, but she stopped them, ramming into a phone booth before disappearing into a green labyrinth. They began a game of hide and seek, but they were quickly discovered. Sim Chung fearlessly charged, sending each gangster flying through the air. She then took his hand and led him to the exit, leaving Junyi astonished. Unfortunately, they had lost their phones and access cards, so Junyi had to contact a friend nearby. After contacting his friend, he brought her to a church. As they entered, he quickly teamed up with his friend to pretend to be a kind priest. He introduced Sim Chung as his wife, claiming she couldn't speak due to an accident a few years ago. Immediately, Sim Chung started talking, making him sweat. It turned out she never knew how to speak, but she had learned from the computer and mastered human language overnight. Unable to sit idly, he played a song on the church organ for his friend, collecting donations. In the evening, the bishop took them to their room. Sim Chung was curious about the love expressed in the song he played. The next morning, Junyi bid farewell to his friend, donating the money to poor children before taking Sim Chung to a place he called the edge of the world. It was where his mother had left without a word, and since then, Junyi had hated leaving without saying goodbye. It was there Sim Chung discovered a message from his mother. After reading it, Junyi felt a weight lifted from his heart. Suddenly, the gangsters appeared. He now had a gun, but when faced with their axe, he quickly ran away. The chase continued until they were cornered at the edge of the cliff. Without hesitation, Sim Chung grabbed his hand and jumped into the endless deep sea. In the vast expanse of water, Sim Chung transformed into a mermaid and swam to Junyi. All the moments they shared came flooding back. They shared a kiss. To hide her identity, she gave him a kiss that erased her image from his memory. Junyi woke up, all his memories gone except for himself and the 6 billion won bracelet that was the thread connecting them. Junyi quickly returned to Seoul. Sim Chung watched his plane disappear, her gaze fixed on it. Back in Seoul, he was greeted by his assistant, who had been out of contact but now appeared at his doorstep. Furious, he grabbed him by the neck. It turned out the gangsters thought he was dead and had turned their attention to his partner. Both were being hunted and sought refuge at his place. When Nam-do asked about the 6 billion won bracelet, Junyi had no memory of it. Meanwhile, Sim Chung said goodbye to her sisters and set off to find the Prince Charming of her dreams. That night, she looked at the moon and recalled Junyi's promise to take her to Seoul and watch fireworks by the Han River. She headed straight for Seoul. 3 months later, a group of men were drinking in the middle of the ocean when a woman emerged from the water and asked, "How do I get to Seoul?" leaving them speechless. After days of swimming tirelessly, Sim Chung had traveled from Spain to Jeju Island. Middle-aged volunteers walking along the coast spotted her emerging from the sea. Sim Chung approached them and asked about Seoul. Coincidentally, they were heading there, so they offered her a ride. Stepping off the bus into the bustling crowd, Sim Chung was overwhelmed by the sights and sounds. She asked everyone she met about Junyi. She had gone days without eating and was craving fish cakes, but had no money. She was yelled at by a store owner, unaware that Junyi had just passed by. While wandering the streets, she witnessed a group of students bullying a young girl. Having witnessed such behavior before, she immediately put her knowledge into practice. Later, she encountered the same group of girls bullying someone again. She tried to intervene, but they wouldn't listen. She rolled up a newspaper and used a few moves to scare them away. The leader was called by her mother, none other than Jin Ok. She gave her daughter some instructions and then got into the elevator. Nearby, Sim Chung was browsing through a second-hand clothing store and picked out a jacket. With the help of a beggar, she used the money given to her by the young girl to take a bus to the 63 building, where Junyi had mentioned watching fireworks. Unfortunately, she got lost in the aquarium. Seeing the fish swimming, she felt hungry and happily jumped into the water, swimming around freely. The next day was Junyi's birthday. His subordinate, CA, and several other servants cooked a lavish meal for him. Seeing her enthusiastically setting the table, Junyi couldn't refuse and took a sip. The familiar taste reminded him of his mother's soup. Yu-ran was fondly looking at a photo of herself and her son when he was a child at the aquarium. Junyi was also reminiscing and went there. Sim Chung, full from her meal, lay down and fell asleep. The staff found her and went to look for her. Visitors, captivated by her beauty, thought she was a mermaid in disguise and took pictures. Junyi's shadow flickered through the crowd, and she swam towards him, calling out, but he didn't hear her. The distance between them was only a glass pane, yet it felt insurmountable. The staff finally spotted Sim Chung and, mistaking her for a spy, chased after her. Junyi unexpectedly received a message from his friend in Spain. It was a picture of him with a girl. He zoomed in and realized it was the same girl from earlier. He immediately turned back to find Sim Chung. They met once again. As she watched him approach, tears streamed down her face. On that day, she had given Junyi the bracelet because she knew he liked it. Sim Chung confessed her feelings and promised to find him before leaving, her heart filled with longing. A guard reported to the district magistrate that a strange theft had occurred in the villages along the river the previous night. Clothes and shoes that had been drying had vanished, leaving behind a precious pearl. The official, upon hearing the report, immediately recognized the culprit, the mermaid. The fairy Hong Jian was excited, seeing an opportunity. The magistrate ordered the mermaid to be hunted down before she reached him. Hong Jian would spread rumors that the recent natural disasters were caused by the mermaid, stirring up fear and unrest. As expected, the villagers were terrified and rioted, demanding the magistrate to eliminate the mermaid for their safety. Dam Ryung, knowing that the wedding procession would be coming for him, remembered his promise to meet on a snowy day. Despite his brother's pleas, he rode his horse to the rendezvous point. In the delicate snow, the wedding carriage waited for Dam Ryung, but it was 3 black-clad assassins who arrived instead. They attacked, following the magistrate's orders. Their swords swung, but were blocked by Dam Ryung. After stabbing one assassin, he swung his sword again, turning to look at the woman in the carriage. Back in the present, the staff caught up to Sim Chung. Meanwhile, Junyi disguised himself as a police officer and successfully moved her to a different location. He brought her to a secluded place and questioned her, asking if she knew him, how they met, and her name. Confronted with these questions, Sim Chung remained silent, leaving him frustrated. He went outside to continue his questioning, but Sim Chung refused to answer. As he was leaving, she chased after him. A passing car obscured Junyi, and she searched for him. She encountered a con artist who was trying to lure her away, but Junyi appeared. The con artist, confident in his skills, was surprised to face such a challenge. With a swift move, Junyi had his wallet in his hand. Defeated, the con artist left. The two strolled along the Han River, when fireworks suddenly erupted. Sim Chung, unaware, rushed towards Junyi and hugged him, thinking it was gunfire. Seeing her fear, he gently told her to trust him and open her eyes. Hearing that they were fireworks, she remembered his promise. They both gazed up at the fireworks, happy and content. After the fireworks ended, Sim Chung insisted on following him, but Junyi wouldn't let her. In the end, he relented and allowed her to follow. In the research lab, Sia pondered over a mysterious antique vase. Although made in ancient times, it had modern patterns. She was surprised to see Junyi bring a woman, especially a girl, home for the first time. After cooking ramen for Sim Chung, Junyi pulled out the bracelet and asked her about it. This time, Sim Chung admitted it was the one she had given him. Junyi didn't believe her. He asked why he didn't remember anything about Sim Chung, leaving her speechless. Noticing that everyone had a name, Sim Chung asked him to give her one. Too lazy to think, Junyi called her silly. To his surprise, Sim Chung loved the name. She happily showed off her new name to T.O., leaving him speechless. Sia visited Junyi to celebrate his birthday. Sim Chung slowly approached, folded her arms, glared at Sia, and greeted her. Seeing the tempting cake, she was about to eat it but was stopped. Observing Sia's polite manners, she mimicked them. As she was leaving, Sia pulled Nam-do aside to inquire about Sim Chung. Hearing that she would be staying for a few days, Sia immediately instructed Nam-do not to let her out of his sight. After showering, Junyi took Sim Chung to sleep in the attic above his room. While shopping, he accidentally glanced at the women's section, and fragments of memories about her flashed through his mind. On the way home, Nam-do suddenly called out to him, asking him to stop the car. Junyi looked closely ahead and noticed a police officer. Nam-do informed him that a nearby neighbor had been killed, and the police were investigating. The police officer had always wanted to arrest Junyi, but now he was worried about Sim Chung, who was alone at home. Sim Chung was watching a movie when someone rang the doorbell. It was the killer, Ma Di-young. He tricked her into letting him in, but Junyi arrived just in time. As the other officers approached, the killer left. While presenting his documents, the officer Hong arrived. Just as Junyi was about to be exposed, Nam-do falsely reported a case to save Junyi. When they arrived home, Sim Chung was worried to see him injured, but Junyi was still angry. He scolded her for opening the door to strangers, as they were much more dangerous than sharks. Seo-hee secretly contacted Di-young, demanding he take care of Junyi quickly. Kai Hyan overheard this, pretending to ask his mother for a sandwich while secretly reading the messages. He purposely dropped his phone into the water to avoid detection. Early in the morning, Sia came to Junyi's house. Sim Chung refused to open the gate, causing Sia to trip and fall. Knowing that she and Junyi had spent the night alone together, Sia immediately asserted her claim, stating that she and Junyi would get married and live together, loving and supporting each other. Sim Chung was furious and bit her finger, her gaze fixed on Sia. When Junyi took his car to hail a taxi, Sim Chung watched TV and learned that confessing love on the first snowfall brings everlasting happiness. When he returned, she hid in the attic, but then smelled something delicious coming from the balcony. Junyi was grilling meat and called her to join him. After their meal, he handed her his phone, explaining how to call him, gave her a bus card, and encouraged her to be independent. Knowing she couldn't stay, she asked him one thing: to meet on the first snowfall at Namsan Tower. Junyi agreed and let her go. But after Sim Chung left, he immediately activated his location tracker to follow her. On the way, Sim Chung stopped and confided in the fish, expressing her loneliness at being separated from Junyi. She had overcome so many obstacles to be near him, but she couldn't be with him. Meanwhile, Junyi, following her location, discovered she was in Gangnam and followed her. When he arrived, he saw her handing out flyers, but no one was taking them. She even got scolded by her boss. Irritated, Junyi immediately called the police and requested the boss's car to be towed. Then, he hired many students to take the flyers, helping Sim Chung. After finishing, Sim Chung felt hungry and cold. A woman suddenly approached, gave her fish cakes, and wrapped a warm scarf around her neck, but then accepted money from Junyi. When it started raining, Sim Chung sought shelter. The little girl who had previously shown her the way to Namsan appeared and told Sim Chung the quickest route, then bid farewell. Meanwhile, Junyi was preparing to go to Namsan Tower as promised. As the bus passed, Sim Chung was suddenly hit by a car. The driver was Kai Hyan. Junyi stood in the snow, unaware of what had happened to her. Sim Chung was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Junyi, unable to find her, searched anxiously and rushed to various hospitals. It was at the 10th hospital that he found her. Seeing the wounds on Sim Chung's body, he called for the doctor and found out her body temperature was only 29 degrees. The doctor performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and as her heartbeat was about to stop, she suddenly opened her eyes. Seeing Jun-Yi anxiously holding her hand, she felt happy. Jun-Yi's friends arrived to check on her and then went outside to handle her admission. Nearby, Kai Hyan was confessing to the police about his involvement with Sim Chung. Jun-Yi approached him and asked if he had intentionally hit Sim Chung. Kai Hyan denied it, claiming it was an accident. Remembering how Kai Hyan had also called the destruction of his family photos an accident, Jun-Yi didn't believe him. Just then, Jun-Yi's father called Kai Hyan, and they left together, leaving Jun-Yi watching from afar. Sim Chung was placed in a shared room. During mealtime, she was skipped because she had to fast for surgery. Feeling sorry for herself, she called Jun-Yi and complained. He couldn't help but laugh, but still pretended to be strict and told her to sleep early. He then discreetly called the doctor to ensure she received enough food. The next day, he even came to her room to see if they were feeding her. Seeing her happily eating ramen, he felt pleased. While walking, Sim Chung witnessed a woman crying for justice regarding her daughter's death. When the vice president's car arrived, he demanded the woman be removed. Unable to contain herself, Sim Chung rushed forward, yelled at him, and kicked him away. The doctor, seeing the video, was shocked, as she had just broken her leg the day before. The vice president was adamant about pressing charges against her and wanted to put her in jail for disorderly conduct. After helping the grieving woman by erasing her memories of her deceased daughter, Sim Chung realized the woman's grief and bravery when she refused to forget her beautiful memories with her child. Meanwhile, Jun-Yi and his team were reviewing the video of Sim Chung and noticed her extraordinary abilities. Nam-do was worried about the vice president's lawsuit against her, so they devised a plan to deal with him. Knowing that the director was on vacation in Hawaii and his son, William, would be returning to take over the hospital, Jun-Yi disguised himself as William and feigned a dead battery to borrow the vice president's phone, swapping it with a different phone. Nam-do took William on a tour of Seoul to distract him, while T.O. took advantage of the opportunity to copy sensitive documents from the vice president's phone, including evidence of corruption and medical malpractice. With this evidence in hand, Jun-Yi demanded that the vice president drop the lawsuit against Sim Chung, apologize to the security guard, and compensate the mother of the deceased patient. After spending several days in the hospital, Sim Chung had recovered. The doctor informed her that she could be discharged, but Sim Chung thought she was being kicked out because she had eaten too much. Jun-Yi arrived to pick her up and, to cheer her up, took her to an artificial snow area. When Sim Chung emerged in a new look, Jun-Yi was captivated. While skiing, she accidentally zoomed past him without knowing how to stop, forcing Jun-Yi to rush and catch her. They rolled down the slope and laughed heartily, creating a romantic moment. Jun-Yi remembered some vague memories, and when Sim Chung mentioned a person in Spain who had taken care of her, Jun-Yi, unaware that it was him, became jealous. That night, he couldn't sleep, while Sim Chung spoke about seeing the Spanish man in her dreams and even telling him, "I love you," making Jun-Yi even more jealous. One night, Jun-Yi had a nightmare, and the face of the injured person in his dream resembled a painful memory from his childhood. The next morning, Nam-do secretly entered Jun-Yi's room and discovered that Sim Chung's bracelet belonged to a man named Dam Ryung, a valuable antique collector. Jun-Yi went to see it to learn about the antique vase in her research lab, and when he touched it, he saw an image of a mermaid and a man kissing. He decided to seek help from a professor for a hypnosis session to clarify his memories. During the hypnosis, he witnessed his past life with Sim Chung, but when her face became clear, he woke up in terror. That evening, Sim Chung asked Jun-Yi if he intended to love her. Jun-Yi declined, explaining that love can quickly become boring. But Sim Chung believed that true love is not easily given up. She thought falling in love was the easiest thing, but letting go of someone was the hardest. The next morning, Sim Chung was determined to attack Jun-Yi by following him everywhere. When Jun-Yi had to go to the library, she went with him and constantly whispered to him, creating a cheerful atmosphere between them. Suddenly, a girl came up to Jun-Yi and gave him a piece of paper. Thinking it was a love letter, he eagerly opened it, but the girl only asked them to be quiet because they were disturbing others. At the library, Jun-Yi researched Dam Ryung and learned that he died at the age of 27, a life full of glory and sorrow. At the same time, Kai Hyan went to the hospital to investigate the secretary's accident, and after leaving, Jun-Yi received a message from the secretary asking to meet. They parted ways. Following the address, Jun-Yi cautiously brought a gun and entered the location. He felt uneasy as he recognized a sense of familiarity, as if he had been followed and disguised before. Suddenly, Sim Chung called, wanting to meet him, but he couldn't answer as he had to deal with the stranger. When Di Young appeared, Jun Yi panicked and asked about the secretary, but Di Young silently approached and attacked him. While fighting, Jun Yi suddenly remembered the face of an evil person from his past life, a long-winded official. Seizing an opportunity, Di Young retaliated, causing Jun Yi to lose his balance. Just when the situation became most dangerous, a barrage of car horns sounded outside, causing Di Young to flee in terror. It turned out that Jun Yi had asked Nam Du to call a fleet of taxis to honk their horns and create chaos to help him escape. Afterwards, Jun Yi quickly got into a car and went to the Han River to meet Sim Chung. They expressed their concern for each other and realized their feelings were deepening. Sim Chung had intended to let go, but this time, Jun Yi held her back, showing that he didn't want to leave her. Suddenly, he had a seizure and fainted right there, leaving Sim Chung terrified. In his unconscious state, Jun Yi saw himself meeting Dam Ryung, who reminded him of their past life's fate and karmic debt, and told Jun Yi to protect Sim Chung from evil. When he woke up, Jun Yi recounted his dream to Nam Du, affirming that he was Dam Ryung during the Joseon era. Nam Du wasn't surprised, as he had also dreamt of being a valiant general. Meanwhile, at Jun Yi's stepmother's house, a stranger delivered a package to her. Recognizing Di Young's voice, she urged him to complete his task quickly. But when Kai Hyan returned, Di Young had to hide. Kai Hyan felt uneasy but didn't ask any further questions. When his stepmother mentioned Jun Yi, she reminded him that their happiness would only be possible if Jun Yi disappeared. The next day, as Jun Yi and his team investigated Di Young, Kai Hyan called and informed them that the secretary was seriously injured in the hospital. Jun Yi immediately went to the hospital and noticed that the secretary couldn't have been drunk driving, suspecting foul play. At that moment, Du Song went for a checkup and was diagnosed with a corneal injury. If not treated promptly, he would need a transplant. While chatting with Kai Hyan, Sim Chung accidentally bumped into Jun Yi. He recognized his father, whom he hadn't seen in 10 years. They faced each other with mixed emotions. Although they had many things to say, their past was filled with conflict and pain. When his father mentioned inheritance, Jun Yi coldly said that he didn't need anything and didn't want to see him again. After leaving, Jun Yi was in a bad mood, and on the way home, he was silent, lost in the intertwined sorrows of the past and present. When he got home, Jun Yi told Sim Chung that if she wanted to leave, she could anytime, as he felt more comfortable without her. But he also admitted that he was very lonely, as he had always been alone for so many years. Sim Chung gently comforted him, saying that she was forgetful, but if he needed to talk, she would always be there. Jun Yi wanted to be sure and asked again, and they shared a sweet kiss. The next day, Jun Yi felt more alive than ever. He woke up early and prepared a dish that Sim Chung loved. Meanwhile, Sim Chung practiced her makeup to make a better impression. Sia visited and informed Jun Yi that the construction site had unearthed some relics from the Joseon era, including Dam Ryung's old house. This caused Dam Ryung to suddenly awaken in Jun Yi's memory. He remembered his dream and began to look for ways to prove his existence. At the construction site, workers continued to unearth more relics. Selhai, secretly preparing medicine for Dam Ryung, suggested a new secretary to replace the old one, but she had other schemes in mind. Meanwhile, Sim Chung was beautifying herself and unexpectedly encountered a person with greater investment potential than her. Nam Du, after getting to know Jinju, arranged a meeting between the ladies, and her cunning tactics gradually became apparent. Nam Du devised a plan to lure Sim Chung into a film-making game, where Jun Yi would play the role of a CEO, and she would be his fiancée. The plan was to clean out shopping malls in a week. Things went smoothly, with Sim Chung receiving praise for her excellent acting skills. But while passing by a claw machine, she discovered the truth behind a scam. Sim Chung continued to be drawn into the investigation when Sia and Jun Yi discovered another strange relic at the research institute. Jun Yi wanted to examine it himself, and when he entered the room, he was drawn to a painting. The lights suddenly went out, and he had to use his lighter to see. When he looked at the painting, Jun Yi was stunned to realize that the person in it was himself. Behind the painting was a letter from Dam Ryung, mentioning his fate with Sim Chung and instructions to keep the matter secret. Jun Yi couldn't help but ask many questions about Dam Ryung and his connection to him. Sia, after seeing the painting, was also amazed and wondered if Dam Ryung was Jun Yi's ancestor. That night, Jun-yi couldn't sleep and decided to go out for drinks with Nam-do. During their conversation, Nam-do expressed his doubts about Sim-chung, saying she had many strange qualities. She wasn't like the people around her, and she had a large amount of pearls, leading Nam-do to believe she wasn't ordinary. Furthermore, the fact that they met in Spain and Jun-yi had no memory of it made him suspicious of Sim-chung's true identity. This time, Jun-yi's doubts about Sim-chung began to grow, and he felt he needed to find out more about her and the mysteries surrounding her life. Continuing their mission, Nam-do contacted a client to arrange a meal with Jun-yi, making her delighted. After greeting each other, she remembered Sim-chung playing with her daughter. Inside, they exchanged business cards. The husband, suspicious, went into the room to call for verification, but someone answered. It turned out that Jun-yi had anticipated this and had Teo answer the call. They then happily enjoyed their meal together. When Jun-yi took a bite of the egg roll, he suddenly remembered the taste of his mother's cooking. By the time the woman brought out the eggs, he couldn't see them. Outside, Teo unexpectedly saw Sia preparing to enter. He quickly went down to stop her, only to discover that this was her home. With no other choice, Teo invited her to a coffee shop to confess his feelings and then tried to text Nam-do. When they learned about it, they immediately devised a plan to leave, surprising the client. When they got home, they argued about their mistake. Sim-chung wanted to ask what happened but was evaded. She began to think that Jun-yi was a bad con artist. With no choice, he admitted that he was a professional con artist who made a living by scamming others. Sim-chung, in turn, no longer concealed her identity. She admitted that she was a mermaid. In the attic, Sim-chung suddenly had a heart attack. Meanwhile, Jun-yi was examining the strange vase with the painting and accidentally remembered part of his memory from under the sea. He went up to the attic to find Sim-chung but couldn't find her. He worriedly went out to search for her. Connecting the fragmented memories, all the events from his past life flashed before Jun-yi's eyes like a fast-forward film. He learned that Sim-chung was destined to be with him from a previous life. He remembered that she had the ability to use her kiss to erase her image from people's memories, including his memory of their time together in Spain. Recalling everything, Jun-yi ran around searching for Sim-chung, but she was nowhere to be found. Elsewhere, Dam Ryung heard that the official Dong had confessed after being caught, claiming he was seduced by the mermaid and falsely accusing him of murder. Dam Ryung lost his temper, drew his sword, and went to Di-young. He vowed that he would not be reincarnated in the next life. Di-young woke up with a start. He was also connected to his past life and knew that Sim-chung was a mermaid. Jun-yi still hadn't found her when he returned home. Sim-chung wandered alone outside, thinking about what had happened. Kai Hyan appeared. Not wanting to go home, she asked Kai Hyan to take her to the sauna to sleep overnight. Sim-chung wasn't happy being alone in the sauna without a place to sleep. Jun-yi searched tirelessly day and night. Somehow, the students had buried Sim-chung's handbag. They accidentally turned on her phone, helping Jun-yi pinpoint her location. They were dividing the money when Jun-yi stopped them. With a few basic moves, Jun-yi managed to retrieve everything. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon was on vacation, so he came to visit her. At that moment, Jun-yi burst in, spotted Sim-chung, and immediately ran to hug her tightly as if they hadn't seen each other in ages. However, Sim-chung still refused to go home with him, believing he was a fraud. Jun-yi was helpless, pretending to go home, lingered at the door, but Sim-chung didn't call him back, leaving him disappointed. Thinking about the instant noodle man she had mentioned before, he realized it was himself, finding it ridiculous that he was actually jealous of himself. Unable to bear it, he went to the sauna and slept beside Sim-chung. Unexpectedly, he encountered a lecherous man. He went straight to the man, stepped on his stomach and lay down in the middle, watching her sleep until Sim-chung woke up and looked back at him. Sim-chung was admiring the water when someone pushed her, almost causing her to fall. Fortunately, Jun-yi caught her. Suddenly, someone splashed water, and he protected her from the water. Realizing the danger, he took her to a drier place. A young boy spilled water. Jun-yi overreacted, fired a water gun, causing the boy to get yelled at. He even held the water bottle 10 inches away from her, making everyone in the room feel uncomfortable and urging Sim-chung to go home. Yuna came home from school and visited Sim-chung. The school was about to have a performance, but she didn't like it at all because no one would come to watch her. Both decided to write a wish and ask Santa Claus to grant it. On the day of the performance, Jun-yi came to take lots of pictures of his daughter. Seeing Yuna alone, he felt sorry for her. Unexpectedly, Sim Chung, looking glamorous, walked over to her. Later, Junyi and the three of them came to cheer her up, surprising Jinju. After a very successful performance, Sim Chung took pictures for Yuna. Then, she took pictures of the two of them, making them very happy. The four of them had drinks together, and she made Junyi promise to never lie again with bad intentions. He agreed and wanted to take Sim Chung to a place. He told her to wait for him for a moment, then carried a bouquet of flowers intending to approach her. But unfortunately, he was caught by Officer Hong. Junyi looked at her with longing, then was taken away, leaving Sim Chung alone. Sim Chung called him, but he was handcuffed and couldn't answer. She begged Officer Hong, but he refused. His subordinates saw this and blamed Hong, telling them to catch Di Young first then sit around. Hearing Di Young, Junyi became uneasy, asking Hong to take off the handcuffs, but he wouldn't listen. Now Sim Chung was alone, and he was very worried. After a long ring, Sim Chung finally answered. He breathed a sigh of relief because she was still safe. Junyi said he had something to do and told her to go home first. Seeing a taxi earlier, she got in. Unexpectedly, the driver was Di Young. Then, she only said one sentence about their meeting place. The first snow of the season was getting heavier and heavier, and she hung up. Officer Hong immediately called back, but no one answered. Remembering their meeting place at the Namsan Tower, he asked to go to Namsan and told Hong to unlock the handcuffs. Then, he asked Hong to request assistance with the investigation in the direction of Namsan, while he turned on location tracking, but it didn't work. In the taxi at that time, Sim Chung had fainted after being injected with something. The police were also carefully laying a trap, but Di Young turned in a completely different direction, escaping their encirclement. Knowing that they hadn't caught Di Young yet, he thought of a small road that could escape the police's control. Officer Hong also believed and followed him. When Sim Chung woke up, she found herself in a strange place, unable to move her legs. He said he wanted to confirm the things in his dream, that she was a mermaid underwater, became human on land, and could transform into a pearl. Recognizing this was the road to the abandoned hospital, they sped there. The three of them split up to start searching. Di Young was about to pick her up and throw her in a container, but Sim Chung immediately said that the mermaid would make anyone who touched her go crazy and lose their memory. Seeing Di Young's panic, she continued to attack. Sim Chung reached out to touch him, causing him to take a step back. Just as Junyi arrived, the man regretfully ran away. Seeing Sim Chung, he embraced her with a pang of sympathy. Back home, he took her to her room to rest, while he went out to talk to the police. Junyi showed Hong the video recording of Di Young disguised as a police officer, followed by the text messages he pretended to be the secretary sent to him, setting up a meeting to handle the situation. He decided to wait until he dealt with Di Young's case before making any further plans. Jinju, unable to get in touch with Nam-do, became disheartened and shifted her attention to Mrs. Seol-hee, inviting her for a meal. Meanwhile, Seo-hai was preparing medicine for Yang Chi-hun. He watched from outside, then snuck in and took some. That evening, everyone gathered for a Christmas celebration. Sim Chung stepped out elegantly, stunning everyone as always. During the party, Junyi tossed cake into his mouth to eat, which Sim Chung found amusing. She wanted to try and effortlessly succeeded. Sie, on the other hand, didn't know how and received careful instructions from Junyi. The two girls bumped into each other in the bathroom. Sim Chung revealed that she and Junyi were liking each other, with Junyi himself saying it, causing Sia to be green with envy. Not taking it, Sia revealed that Junyi said the same thing to every girl, implying Sim Chung was just another one of his playthings. Despite that, Sia was still downcast, asking Tio out for drinks to talk. In exchange for a photo of herself for Tio to admire, she shared her touching story of her 7-year-long unrequited love. In the end, she sobbed into the phone, complaining about her fate, making Tio exasperated. Sim Chung suddenly sat down next to him, causing Tio to blush. She asked Tio to teach her how to use a computer to search online. Junyi, seeing them whispering to each other, became jealous and wanted to be the one to teach her how to use the computer. Junyi went for an eye exam and coincidentally met Mrs. Duran getting her medication. But his eyesight was too poor to see her. Junyi was searching for materials when he received a call from Hong, saying that he could no longer protect the family line. Therefore, Junyi's father had to protect himself, while he would protect Junyi's mother. This made him more anxious. Going back to his room, he saw Sim Chung waiting, anticipating that he would continue thinking tonight, causing him to be unable to sleep. He boldly approached her and kissed her on the cheek. After the kiss, Sim Chung tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and called him. But Jun-yi was having a nightmare, waking up to see her sitting next to him. He hugged her tightly as if he didn't want anyone to take her away. Earlier, she heard him say Seowa, and jealously asked him to choose between her and Seowa, making Jun-yi chuckle. When she was about to leave, Jun-yi held her back, pulling her into his arms and covering her with a blanket. They went to sleep happily. After he fell asleep, she quietly left, running outside to express her joy at knowing he liked her. Everything seemed bright before her eyes and in Sim Chung's heart. Meanwhile, Seo Hai was asking the lawyer to revise the will according to his wishes, preventing Jun-yi from receiving any inheritance. If this was successful, the lawyer would get his own office. Unexpectedly, everyone in the company was bribed by Seo Hai. He was tricked by the lawyer to sign the revised will without realizing it. Early in the morning, Sim Chung woke up and rearranged the entire house. Jun-yi asked her what she wanted to eat. She said spaghetti. When they ran out of spaghetti, they went shopping. On the way, she excitedly danced and skipped, helped an old woman pull her groceries, helped a pregnant woman throw out the trash, and even moved a car to another spot to prevent it from blocking the road. Officer Hong called to meet him. Upon arrival, Di-young had disposed of the taxi from that day. Because he had already handled it, there was no trace of him, except for the squid flower. Yu-ran wanted to quit her job, but Jinju was reluctant and begged her to stay for a few more days. Sia then asked her to go somewhere with her. On the way, they were suddenly robbed, but luckily Sim Chung came to their rescue. Unexpectedly, they ended up at Jun-yi's house. Yu-ran accidentally met Sim Chung again, and they happily cooked together. Sia toured Jun-yi's room and unexpectedly discovered a childhood photo of him with his mother, coincidentally resembling Mrs. Duran. Shocked to learn that she was his mother, Sia sorrowfully watched them enjoy each other's company. When Jun-yi found out, he immediately took her away. His eyes were blurry and dazed, searching for Seo Hai and then stepping aside, causing Yang to fall down the stairs. Chi-hun came home and immediately called an ambulance. He also saw Seo Hai still standing at the top of the stairs looking down. Unexpectedly, all of Chi-hun's worries collapsed when Yang woke up and kept calling out for Jun-yi. Meanwhile, Officer Hong investigated and discovered that someone had been secretly treating Di-young for years, the person being Professor Kai-hun. The doctor that Chun often visited, Professor Kai-hun, was visited by Ma Dazone in his room. Meanwhile, Jun-yi was being hypnotized by the professor to return to his past life. He saw himself as Dam Ryung, being taken away by someone, while the officials were preparing to capture the mermaid. As predicted, Seowa swam up towards the light and was caught in a net. Dam Ryung, with a sense of urgency, was determined to save her. The guards escorted him back and saw her caught in the net. They desperately shot arrows, injuring Seowa. Dam Ryung appeared just in time and stopped them, the two sides engaging in a fierce battle. At that moment, the official threw a spear down. Dam Ryung immediately jumped down to protect Seowa. Seowa was heartbroken to see Dam Ryung dead. She used her strength to stab through her own body, to accompany him into the next life. Learning about the fate of both of them in their past life, Jun-yi painfully woke up. He remembered his promise to meet again in the next life. Yet when she came to him and loved him, Jun-yi didn't know, even causing her to cry. Ma Dazone happened to walk in and heard Jun-yi's story. The professor explained that his destiny was with the person who wanted to harm him, while his cursed fate was with Seowa. If they didn't meet, they would be safe, but loving each other put them both in danger. The professor suggested a way to change their destiny, which was to return her to where she belonged. Jun-yi rushed back home looking for her, but didn't find her, then ran to find her and saw Chun playing with the children. He ran to her, embraced her, and said he would do everything she wanted. They began to date, holding hands and dancing together, happily. While watching a movie, the entire theater heard her cry because she was moved. While Jun-yi joked that if he died like the male lead saving the female lead, what would Chun do? Chun didn't hesitate and replied that she would follow him, to live and die together. As soon as they got home, Jun-yi immediately asked T.O. to enhance the security system around the house within a 100-meter radius so he could see Sim Chung at all times. Meanwhile, Ma Dazone secretly went to see Professor Kai-hun, asking him to hypnotize him as he did with Jun-yi to see his own outcome. After rolling around in his dream, Ma Dazone concluded that he wasn't the one who killed those two people. Kai-hyun had turned his back on everyone, taking control of the company. He explained to the shareholders that Du Dong was on a trip and didn't intend to take over. He would temporarily manage the company on his behalf. Afterwards, he went to visit Yang and comforted him. When Yang asked about Junyi, he said that he had contacted him, but Junyi was too busy to come. Junyi went to visit his secretary, thanking him because whether in the past life or the present, he had always been by his side. He was determined to find the person who harmed him, pulled out a picture of Di Young, and asked him to blink if that was the bad guy. The secretary blinked. Upon learning that Yu Ran was Junyi's mother, Sia became more polite and gentle, even hugging her tightly, which left her bewildered. When Yu Ran asked about Sioa, she was shocked to learn that Junyi had never gone to study abroad but had run away from home since high school. She immediately went to Seo Hai's house to look for her son. Seo Hai casually said that Junyi had left home on his own. Yu Ran couldn't take it anymore, directly calling her Kang Jai Hu and declaring that she would take back what belonged to her. Ma Dazone sent people to assassinate Yu Ran, but she was saved by Sim Chung. Meanwhile, Tio took pictures of the suspect. Junyi met Officer Hong and learned that they were having trouble finding the person who treated Di Young. He thought of his past life and offered help. Hong also mentioned that the person who always treated Di Young when the hospital was abandoned was Professor Kai Hun. Junyi and Hong went to see the professor, but he lied, making Junyi suspicious. Meanwhile, Tio reported that Sim Chung was missing. Junyi rushed to find her and saw her with Kai Hyun. He grabbed her things and pulled her back to the house without saying anything. Going upstairs, Sim Chung suddenly felt a pain in her chest, probably because she hadn't been in the water for a long time. Hearing that, he was worried and ordered everyone in the house to go out the next morning and not return before 7 p.m. so Sim Chung could stay home and swim to her heart's content. Nam Do, who was suspicious, secretly returned home and caught Sim Chung swimming. He got a little closer and unexpectedly saw her tail. At first, he thought it was just a fake, but after connecting the clues, Nam Do realized that Sim Chung was a mermaid. Sim Chung asked Tio to bring her a cloak and went upstairs. Knowing her secret, Nam Do was elated, intending to turn her into a walking ATM to get her pearls. He pretended to agree with her, but Sim Chung shook his hand and erased all his memories, causing him to forget everything. After dinner, she pulled Junyi aside and asked, "How long have you been angry with me?" Sim Chung affirmed that no matter how many times he asked, she only had one answer. Her heart only loved one person. If that person left her or died, her heart would stop beating. She asked him when he started hearing her thoughts, and Junyi admitted that he had known all along. The fact that she could die if he died was also true. Junyi realized that the real danger for Sim Chung wasn't from Di Young, but from him. He unconsciously avoided her, causing Sim Chung to be heartbroken and cry, her pearls scattered on the floor. To further explain, Junyi took her to the museum where his past life was displayed. He told her about their tragic love story, where Dam Ryang and Sioa had lived happily and had children together. He also showed her the ceramic vase depicting them underwater. When Sim Chung wondered why such a beautiful love had become a nightmare, Junyi changed the subject, jokingly saying that no love was forever. That night, Sim Chung suddenly wanted to erase her embarrassing memories from him, so she forcefully kissed Junyi. But he escaped and ran away, finally wrapping himself in blankets, leaving her helpless. Afterwards, he agreed to let her sleep with him, but with the promise to not do anything. At Junyi's house, everyone talked about a woman named Camilla, who had a complex relationship with Di Young. Nam Do felt chills when he investigated and found that the people close to Camilla had all died, with clear times and locations, allowing her to receive all the insurance money. Meanwhile, Yu Ran was discharged from the hospital and escorted home by Seo Hai. She was introduced to the new secretary, Du Huan, but he couldn't see clearly. Knowing she was the official wife, the secretary's attitude immediately changed 180 degrees, becoming polite and calling her sister. She was close, sweet, and advised her to consider this place as her home. Jin Su was determined to help Yu Ran reclaim her position. CA, with her troubled mind, invited Tio to go out for a night out. The whole group went along, including Sim Chung and Nam Do. At the party, everyone was amazed by Sim Chung's beauty, and everyone followed her every step. Nam Do was busy partying when Junyi called, shocked to learn that Sim Chung was also at the late-night gathering. Seeing her blend naturally into the fun, Junyi pulled her away. On their way home, it was raining, and Sim Chung was sad because she couldn't walk in the rain. Hearing that, he ran to find an umbrella and boots so she could walk with him. Kai Hyan approached the secretary and probed him to see how much he knew about his mother. Seeing the change in his expression, Kai Hyan revealed his evil nature, wanting to eliminate him from this world. He intentionally caused trouble by pulling out the air pump. Meanwhile, Kai Hyan's wife, worried when she saw the doctor running into her husband's room, called Di-young back. While Yu-ran was waiting for a call, Sim-chung called her to her birthday party. Initially, she declined, but when she learned that Sim-chung was an orphan, she was touched and agreed. Everyone helped to prepare Sim-chung's birthday. Jun-yi went to buy flowers, and her wandering friend also came, causing Nam-do to panic. Sim-chung cheerfully went out to greet Yu-ran, and they both went into the house. From across the street, Jun-yi kept an eye on them both. When Sim-chung and Yu-ran faced each other, Sim-chung suddenly realized that Jun-yi was in the distance. She called his name, and Yu-ran was stunned to hear her son's name. She said that she had a son named Jun-yi, but they had been separated and hadn't been able to reunite. Hearing this, Sim-chung understood and sent her thoughts to Jun-yi so he would know that the mother who had been missing for 10 years was right in front of him. They looked at each other without blinking, their bottled-up emotions reflected in their eyes. Although Jian ran to hug Jun-yi, the feeling from before didn't change at all. They made an appointment to meet privately. He said he ran away from home because he missed her. Seeing Jian healthy like this, he was also very happy. Seeing his mother cry, he carefully wiped her tears with a tissue. Feeling that she was so small, he just wanted to hug her all the time. Everyone was also very happy to know that Jun-yi had found his mother. Afterwards, the whole family sang happy birthday to Sim-chung. She was about to blow out the candles, but he said she had to make a wish first. Unexpectedly, she blurted out that she wanted to be happy with Jun-yi forever. She was about to cut the cake, but Sim-chung wanted to light the candles again to celebrate the reunion of his mother and son. Nam-do informed her that Jun-yi had found his mother. Sia collapsed on the spot. Every party eventually ends, everyone goes their separate ways. The whole family reunited again. Suddenly, Nam-do asked about her high school friend, Kang Jae-hoon. Upon hearing the name, she immediately changed her expression. She said that was Seo Hai. Nam-do said they were investigating a murderer, Ma Di-young, and that Kang Jae-hoon had a connection to him. As he was speaking, Jun-yi immediately interrupted. Seo was awkwardly standing outside the door at that moment. Luckily, T.O. returned in time, and she pulled him away to go drinking with her. She confided in him that she actually knew that Jian was his mother, but she had treated her very badly over the past time, so she wanted to salvage the relationship before telling Jun-yi. Understanding T.O.'s unrequited love, Sia advised him to let her go. Jun-yi immediately provided information to Officer Hong. His stepmother, Seo Hai, was Kang Jae-hoon. Hong reasoned that she might have instructed Di-young to attack him, but for what purpose? Thinking back to Jae-hoon's veiled words, he immediately thought of the inheritance, but Officer Hong didn't believe him. On the other side, the secretary luckily survived his near-death experience. The doctor considered it a rare miracle. At that moment, in his dream, the secretary saw that the two who killed Dam Ryo were Jae-hoon and Nam-do. In the present, T.O. helped Sia home when he saw her about to fall. He told her clearly that he would suppress his feelings, encouraging her to express everything to Jun-yi, regardless of the outcome. Sim-chung asked Nam-do to tell her everything about what happened earlier with Seo Hai and Madazol. She learned that Kai Hyan was their son. She took Yu-ran to her room to sleep with her, and was delighted to see Jun-yi's gift, which was a pair of shoes and a plush squid. Kai Hyan was at the company when Jun-yi came to see him, dismissing everyone else. Jun-yi directly asked, "Where's Dad?" Kai Hyan insisted that he was traveling, but Jun-yi didn't believe him. He retracted his earlier words and left. Officer Hong immediately investigated and found no record of Di-young leaving the country in the past 6 months, so he was definitely still in the country. He called Nam-do to prepare for a mission, which was none other than his own home. Sim-chung overheard and wanted to help. Mrs. Du asked Jin-ju to help her lure Seo Hai out, because she was very difficult to deal with, and Jin-ju had a plan. Nam-do went to scout and learned that the house was very happy with the pest extermination service, so they would be able to disguise themselves as a pest control company. They waited until Seo Hai went out that night and then acted. Hong worriedly gave them instructions. Upon entering, everyone acted according to their roles. Jun-yi stood and looked at the house he once lived in. Sim-chung's task was to take Tri-hoon out to eat and keep him busy. T.O. showed his hacking skills by instantly hacking into the entire camera network. Nam-do distracted the maid to allow Jun-yi to enter the house. Jun-yi investigated and installed a listening device, then snuck into the mansion to find Di-young. He was heartbroken to see his father squinting because he couldn't see properly. He spoke to let his father know who he was. The maid heard the noise and became suspicious. Jun-yi helped his father up, but he refused. He said Seo-hai had damaged his eyesight, but despite that, he didn't want to harm his stepmother. He still thought she was kind, and that his vision could be restored with surgery. When Jun-yi revealed her crimes, his father said that he was a fraud and was now trying to cheat him. Jun-yi was shocked. Hearing loud noises upstairs, the maid reported it to Kai Hyan. He realized he had been tricked. After Kai Hyan left, Di-young attacked him, holding a hammer and approaching Sim-chung. Unexpectedly, Di-young used the hammer to break the fire suppression system above. Water sprayed out, forcing Sim-chung to flee. Then followed a thrilling chase. Waiting on the roof, Sim-chung dragged Di-young out, deciding to erase all their memories. Unexpectedly, she accidentally saw the end of their two lives in their previous life. Knowing that Jun-yi had deceived her again, Sim-chung felt completely disappointed, while Di-young was confused, not knowing who he was or where he was. Sim-chung intended to make him a blank slate and lock him up in prison, but when she touched those painful memories, her heart ached. There was no other way. Jun-yi begged his father to believe him once and leave this dangerous place with him. Although Du-rong refused to go, he could only helplessly watch him leave. After finishing their mission, the three of them quickly retreated. At this time, Du-rong was alone in his room crying. Meanwhile, Sim-chung went home alone. Looking at her cozy home, she thought about the happy days she had spent here with him, and regretted her decision to leave. Kai Hyan went home and immediately asked Du-rong, but he concealed everything. To gave Jun-yi all the collected materials, confirming that the will in the safe was all left to Seo-hai and Kai Hyan. He gave Hong a small metal box and the medicine he obtained, suspecting that she used it to harm his father. Moreover, there were strange flowers in her room. Nam-do immediately recognized them as aconite. Hong said that there had been assassinations using this flower a few years ago. Hong would try to get a search warrant. Seo-hai went to find Ma Di-young and learned that he had completely lost his memory. Jun-yi entered the room, turned on music, and asked Sim-chung if she was okay, but she coldly dismissed him. Jun-yi sadly went out to the living room and slept with Nam-do. In the car, knowing that Di-young had lost his memory, Seo-hai took the opportunity to plant the idea of revenge in his mind to control Di-young. Seo-hai checked the medicine and found it was missing. She asked the maid, and the maid knew that the pest control guys had brought medicine for Du-rong to drink yesterday. Thinking about how her two previous husbands died from blindness, he took the medicine, wrapped it up, and threw it in the trash. Unexpectedly, she saw everything. That night, Du-jian couldn't sleep, so he went outside and accidentally overheard a conversation between Seo-hai and Di-young. At the same time, Hong outside also heard it. Du-rong was shocked when he learned the truth, and he accidentally made a noise that Seo-hai heard. She went out to search but couldn't find anyone, and as she was about to turn back, she saw Du-rong hiding behind the glass. He went upstairs, turned off his phone, and hid it under the bed. At this time, Seo-hai brought medicine to him and said she had to go out. Du-rong still wrapped the medicine and threw it in the trash, but he didn't know she had poisoned his glass of water. Seo-hai made an appointment with Kai Hyan to go out to eat to establish an alibi. Sensing danger, Kai Hyan politely declined and went straight home. Quickly, Du-rong had a heart attack. He tried to call Jun-yi on his phone, but Jun-yi was outside in the living room investigating and didn't know. As he was dying, Du-rong could only express his thoughts through a voice message. Jun-yi entered the room, saw his father's apology message, and immediately drove home. When he arrived, he saw an ambulance in front of the house. The staff carried his father's body out in front of him. Confirming that his father was gone forever, everything in him seemed to collapse. Jun-yi painfully knelt down, unable to accept this cruel reality. Going back a few hours earlier, when Kai Hyan worriedly ran into the room and heard Du-rong's apology to Jun-yi. After confirming Du-rong's death, Kai Hyan disposed of the poisoned glass of water, and then called an ambulance. Afterwards, he pretended to be sorrowful to cooperate with the police investigation. When they asked about Seo-hai, he said she had gone out 2 hours ago. When he went outside, he met Jun-yi. Seeing Kai Hyan, Jun-yi immediately rushed over and punched him, pushing away the police. He was furious because it was because of them that his father had died. He continued to attack in a frenzy. Only when Officer Hong arrived did Jun-yi calm down. He regretted not taking action sooner. The three of them went to the hospital together, seeing him sitting slumped alone. Sim Chung slowly approached and hugged him. Jun-yi could only cry, and he asked Sim Chung to erase those painful memories for him, but she couldn't because after all, he loved his father very much. Seo Hai finally arrived. She acted sorrowful in front of everyone, then cried and fainted and was taken away by Kai Hyan. Mrs. Du Dan also came. She didn't expect him to leave so suddenly. She secretly blamed him for treating her like a stranger, especially while he was in the hospital. Jun-yi said that his father was injured in the eye, so he didn't see her. As soon as Seo Hai regained consciousness, she called her lawyer to announce the will. Kai Hyan pulled the curtains closed and asked her if she was the murderer. Seo Hai admitted it and told him that if it was exposed, he should pretend he didn't know anything. When Kai Hyan went outside, he met Nam-do. Kai Hyan made an appointment with Nam-do to threaten him, saying that unlike Jun-yi, Nam-do was a fraud who didn't care about good or bad, so he could easily be put in jail. Nam-do immediately turned around and agreed to Kai Hyan's request to eliminate Jun-yi. Finally, the doctor concluded that the cause of death was a stroke. Officer Hong received a search warrant and immediately searched. However, they searched the whole house and still couldn't find what they were looking for. At the funeral, Yu Ran brazenly came to light incense, which made Seo Hai flustered. Afterwards, they bumped into each other in the restroom. Seo Hai insulted Yu Ran and her daughter, making her furious and slapping her. She was about to retaliate when Sim Chung appeared. She grabbed Seo Hai's hand and entered her memory, learning about her motive and criminal behavior. Sim Chung and Jun-yi went home to investigate according to their memories. She went down to the basement and opened a secret door leading to the room where Di-young had once lived. Seeing the evidence of the cover-up, Jun-yi immediately brought people to arrest Seo Hai in front of everyone. Sim Chung asked him about the cycle in their previous life. When she erased Di-young's memory, she accidentally saw the face of the person who killed them. It was someone they both knew. The lawyer instructed Seo Hai to remain silent or pretend to be ill, trying to get through 48 hours and they would be successful. Hong tried everything but couldn't get Seo Hai to talk. Waiting for Jun-yi to leave, Nam-do nearby told him that he would strike tonight. Waiting until 5 o'clock, Seo Hai calmly walked out, completely innocent. Waiting for Jun-yi to go out, Nam-do suddenly attacked from behind, leaving him immobile. Watching through the camera, Sim Chung witnessed it and immediately informed Jun-yi. The two of them quickly chased after him, locating his position. Nam-do took Jun-yi to an abandoned warehouse, tied him up, and injected him with poison. Kai Hyan and Nam-do went outside. She admitted to all her crimes, laughing contentedly. Suddenly, Jun-yi also laughed happily, leaving Seo Hai stunned. The sound of a phone ringing came from somewhere, and Officer Hong appeared. The hidden police officers also emerged to close in. It turned out that it was all a show, except this time, Sim Chung was more skilled than her. Jun-yi looked relieved as Seo Hai was arrested by the police, then pulled Kai Hyan out and subdued him. Kai Hyan went crazy, pulling out a gun and aiming it at Jun-yi. Fate always mirrored his dream, only this time, Sim Chung took the bullet for him. The police quickly subdued Kai Hyan. Jun-yi was still stunned and couldn't comprehend what had happened. One by one, people left him. All the way to the hospital, he only begged her not to leave him alone. Kai Hyan remembered the poison he gave Jun-yi. He had another box in his bag, and he pretended to go to the bathroom and fixed it up. Sim Chung was taken to surgery. Kai Hyan was being investigated, and then the poison gradually took effect, and he began to suffer. Meanwhile, Xiaomi was still arguing with Hong and her subordinates, accidentally reporting news about Kai Hyan. She rushed to her son. In his dying moments, Kai Hyan said that his mother being his mother was like a curse, and then breathed his last breath. The three of them waited anxiously for Sim Chung's surgery until Nam-do reported that Kai Hyan had passed away. Jun-yi was disappointed that he still shirked his responsibility until the end. Finally, Sim Chung was taken to the recovery room. Jun-yi asked about the surgery, and the doctor said it was a miracle, even incredibly strange, because everything about Sim Chung had recovered normally. Afterwards, Sim Chung woke up. He immediately went over to ask if she was in pain, and also said that if she didn't wake up, he would follow her. In short, he thanked her for coming back to him. Nam-do heard this and felt goosebumps, so he left. After the trial, Seo Hai was taken to prison. Reporters and people crowded like ants to watch Seo Hai on the screen. It was unknown how much Di Young remembered, but he made an appointment with Professor Kai Gun. The professor contacted Jun Yi shortly after, conducting an investigation. Di Young went back to his dream on New Year's Day. Quan Dong and Hong Jian chose fortune tellers to help them, but Quan's fortune was very bad, and he was struck by lightning. But his soul refused to be freed, not knowing whether he was being punished in life or whether life itself was a punishment. Hearing this, Quan Rong was extremely worried. That night, he and Hong Jian escaped, but were intercepted by Nam Du's men. It turned out that he was the son of the merchant who had died at the beach. Nam Du drew his sword and cut off his neck, not only avenging his father but also repaying Dam Ryung. Then, he forced Hong Jian to drink poison made from aconitum. Ma Di Young woke up and finally learned his purpose in life. Knowing that Professor Kai Gun was the god in the dream, he had known everything but remained silent, observing silently. Di Young continuously strangled the professor. If Jun Yi hadn't arrived in time, another life would have been lost. The police also arrived in time to subdue Di Young. Before leaving, Di Young looked intently at Nam Du because in their previous life, he had killed him, disguised himself as a doctor, and erased all of Sim Chung's medical records. Jun Yi took Sim Chung home. That night, he found an excuse to want to sleep with her, but Sim Chung refused. The next day, Jun Yi saw Yu Ran home, but she didn't invite him in. Jin Du and his wife thought of 1,000 reasons to get into the house, not expecting to meet director Kim Ja-hai again. Sim Chung had to make a separate appointment to talk to the two of them. As they left, they both completely forgot about each other. Nam Du found it very magical and even wanted to steal Sim Chung away from Jun Yi, making him angry. But then, he didn't know that Sim Chung suddenly had a heart attack. In the days that followed, she had more attacks and grew weaker, making him heartbroken. Jun Yi decided to enjoy a romantic evening with her. Finally, Sim Chung found out, so she prepared very carefully. Even though he loved Sim Chung very much, she was increasingly frail, and just watching her made him hurt even more. Jun Yi put the ring back on her, deciding to let her go back to her vast ocean. He hugged her from behind, asking her not to erase his memories of her so that he could live on, remembering Sim Chung every day. Sim Chung felt that Jun Yi would be at a loss if he did that, so she decided to kiss him to erase all his memories. Then, she went to meet the dear friends she had made and shook hands to take away their memories of her, as if she wanted to completely disappear from this world. After that, she went to the beach, gazed at the murmuring waves, hesitating and conflicted. After a while, Sim Chung jumped into her familiar ocean. 3 years passed, everything remained unchanged, except for the absence of someone. Troll switched to studying law and aspired to become a prosecutor. Jun Yi didn't expect that his internship would be at the office where he had once scammed people. However, his abilities were undeniable. Occasionally, after work, he would go out to eat with the police, and Nam Du also retired from his criminal life, becoming a famous speaker. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the ocean, Sim Chung had recovered completely. It was time for Sim Chung to continue searching for her other half. At this time, a delivery guy was delivering goods, and he wondered why the address was by the beach. A hand reached out and took the package from the toilet. At this time, a woman wearing a suit was enthusiastically drying her hair with a hairdryer. It turned out that this was the mermaid, Sim Chung. At this moment, a bus passed by. Sim Chung quickly boarded and went to Seoul. At this time, she saw a girl staring at the aquarium. Feeling empathetic, she decided to treat her to a lavish sashimi meal. Then, the girl confided that she was there because of a man. Sim Chung, with her wealth of experience, immediately asked if he loved her. The girl hesitated and shook her head. After that, she also went to Jun Yi's house. The person who opened the door was Nam Du, but because she had erased his memories, he didn't know who Sim Chung was. Luckily, Mrs. Yu Ran had just come home and invited her in for a drink. Stepping into the nest that was once hers, she couldn't hold back her emotions. Seong-suk took the paper from under the table, and even went to the toilet without needing any directions. The overflowing bags, everywhere, were full of memories of the two of them. Seeing that he was living very well and comfortably without her, she sat down, regretting why she had come back at all. At this moment, Jun Yi arrived with an umbrella. He offered his hand for her to hold. She asked why he still remembered her. In fact, he carefully wrote down every moment he spent with her in his diary so that he wouldn't gradually forget her. He traveled everywhere and found a house by the sea for the two of them. The two of them hugged each other for a long time in the cold snow. Then, she also returned to her familiar attic. She intended to kiss him, but Junyi thought she wanted to take away his memories, so he avoided her. When he wanted to kiss her back, she refused. Time flew by, and the two of them finally got married. Sim Chung was studying for the university entrance exam, but she was disrupted by her childish husband who wanted to go to sleep. Junyi, who had passed the law school entrance exam, decided to move to the coast with her. Sim Chung was pregnant with their first child and ate a lot. The two of them were inseparable, as if they didn't want to be apart.